Happy Friday, everyone, and welcome to Relentless Learning. We do this every Friday. We have a special guest each week, and I'm very excited this week. We have Steve Ropa. I was talking to him earlier. He's sitting in the green room. He's very anxious to present. Before that, I got a couple things that I want to cover. For those of you who haven't been with us, just a little bit of information on Relentless Learning. This is sponsored by the VUCA MBA. I'll talk about that in a little bit. Most of you have probably heard that already. Two big ideas every week. Within 45 minutes, we want to present two big ideas. We want to give you, as viewers of the show, the ability to ask questions as well in the comments. We will answer those after the presentations. The two presentations today, they're going to last about 10 minutes apiece. Steve Ropa is going to talk about the biggest reason for technical excellence that nobody talks about. I'm going to present on something that I call Apke's third law of agile transformation. For those of you who were with us last week, you might remember that I said it might be a little spicy for some folks, a little controversial for some folks, but I think you'll see, hopefully, some wisdom in what I have to say this week about agile coaching in particular, and transformation, and how to choose good agile coaches. Next week, I have my friend Sasha Alexander Frumpkin is going to present on self-regulating systems as the ultimate solution to the VUCA challenge. And I'm going to change things up. I've got a whole bunch of laws of agile transformation, but I don't want to get stale. I'm going to present on not psychological safety, which is something that was found in Project Aristotle, and I think a lot of us are familiar with that. But there were 5 things that they found out in this Project Aristotle. We don't talk a lot about the other 4. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the other 4, because I think that that's important for us to not lose sight of the fact that when Google did that study, it was more than just psychological safety, though that's very, very important and the most important thing. There are 4 other things that they found, and those are pretty important as well. So for those of you who haven't seen the show before, it's sponsored by the VUCA MBA. So what is the VUCA MBA? Well, it's 2 acronyms, and the VUCA part stands for volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. This comes to us actually from the military. It was a description of how the world is changing. There are all kinds of different acronyms now. I think, in fact, there's people who make money just making acronyms about how the world is changing. We all know it's changing. We all see it every day. We have AI, and we have companies being disrupted, and people not staying on the Fortune 500 list as long. It's called the Shift Index. Things are changing. The world is different. How do we survive? How do we thrive in this VUCA world? It's pretty important. And one of the ways that we do it is what I refer to as MBA, Mindset for Business Agility. This concept of businesses being agile, being able to change with the times. It is, in my estimation, a mindset, and this VUCA MBA is a 3-day course that you take, that I go into companies and I teach to companies, that helps them to understand the new world and how to not only survive in it, but thrive in it. So for those of you who might be interested in this concept of the VUCA MBA, there's a lot of links. I put them in the chat. I put them in every week before the show so that they're easier. You can just click on them so you don't have to write them down from here. They got the website, the email. There's a Relentless Learning mailing list. I'm not going to spam you, but I'll remind you gently and talk about who's going to be talking so that you can put it on your calendar. I've got a ton of free materials on YouTube, and I continue to add to it. In fact, the Relentless Learning not only will be on LinkedIn, but I'll make some cuts to it, put it on YouTube so you can check it out there as well. LinkedIn, please link in to me if you haven't yet. And for those of you who just might want to chat, if you can find some time on my calendar, you click that link. Just find some time on my calendar. I'm very passionate about what I do. Happy to talk about the Agile or the VUCA MBA or anything that you might just want to talk about. You can set up a half hour. And for those of you who want to see the testimonials, there's a whole bunch of testimonials. I think this VUCA MBA class is something that can make a big difference for companies. I've seen it in my practice. So shifting gears, I want to present what I could consider my big idea for today. So, start on slide 4. Let's start on slide 1. I keep these slides so that I don't forget something. Apke's third law of agile transformation. We had 2 before. If you want to go check the other shows, do it. The other 2 were published. This one is currently unpublished, though. I started writing a book. I think I talked about this before, called Apke's Laws of Agile Transformation, and then I got sidetracked and ended up writing Apke's Golden Rule of Agile, which is my most recent book. But the third law of agile transformation is this: the actual ability of someone to lead an agile transformation is inversely proportional to the number of certifications that they display prominently to the world. This is a bit tongue-in-cheek, but what I'm saying here is there's so many certifications in the world of agile. What do they really mean? What does this really tell me about a person and their ability to do things? And what I found is that actually the people who have fewer initials next to their name, I found to be better at leading transformations than those with a bunch of them. Why is this? Well, I think it's because certifications themselves in the world of agile don't really say a lot about the person's ability in the real world. And there's a reason for it. I grabbed a whole bunch of what I would consider the usual suspects of certifications. There's tons of them out there. And the reason that there's tons of certifications out there is certifications are easy to sell. And they make a lot of money. So here's some of the ones that exist. And I want you to look. Each one of these certificates generally has 2 things. It has an exam that you have to sit for, and it has some kind of requirements. So I outlined them here. And the interesting thing is, if you look at the PMI ACP, and I'm not a proponent of the PMI ACP, I think they've got some ways to go still, at least since I've been familiar with them. But look at it. It's a 3-hour exam, and you have to have actual hours. So 2,000 hours of project management, 1,500 hours of agile, 21 contact hours of training. That's pretty rigorous. Unfortunately, I don't know if I necessarily agree with PMI and what they do, but that's rigorous. It tells me I have done something. I've put some time in it. The rest of them aren't as rigorous. And you can look at them. Some of them don't have any requirements at all, except for the exam. You have to pass the exam. The folks who took my Agile MBA class, which I taught to thousands of people worldwide over the years for free through a nonprofit called the Job Hackers, I think most of you are familiar with. I encourage people to take that because it was a more rigorous test than the CSM. And there was no training component. Some of these things, you look at the CSM, for example, you've got a 1-hour exam, which I used to joke anybody could pass, really. And you got 16 hours of training. Guess where they make their money? They're selling you 16 hours of training. The certification is just a way of selling their training, which is why I don't give certification for my training. It doesn't help me in marketing, but it helps me sleep at night, because I don't want to certify somebody can do something that they can't do. All I can certify is and we used to give certificates for the Agile MBA because folks wanted them. I can certify that you spent time in the classroom. That's all I can certify. And I think that's all a lot of these things can certify. And the problem is that people misinterpret this as somebody has certain skills, because there are certifications in the world where when you do them, it's a guarantee that you have certain skills. I don't think this is true in the world of Agile. And this is a problem. So this is one of the reasons for Apke's third law. The other thing that I want to say is, okay, people are saying, hey, okay, I get it. If certifications aren't the way, great, you told me the problem. I used to have a boss that said, don't bring me a problem without bringing me a solution. And I've always tried to take that to heart. So if certs aren't the way, how should you go about hiring Agile coaches, especially those who are involved in transformation? Because we all know, I think we do, that transformation is hard. As individuals, when we try to make changes, it's hard. And when you try to do it at large organizations, it's really, really hard. Here's what I think you all should be looking for. So those of you folks who are in HR, those of you folks who are hiring Agile coaches, take this to heart. I believe that the best way to determine who to hire is to find them in public. Go out to LinkedIn, find these people, because the best Agile coaches And the people who do the best job at agile transformations are very public. And they don't usually have a lot of initials next to their name. I was very fortunate recently, and Steve was one of my teammates in this agile coaching group that we put together recently, which is one of the reasons I have him here. I have a great deal of respect for Steve and the people that we hired. When I look at the people we hired, and I think if you ask any of them, and maybe I'll ask Steve when he comes on, one of the best group of coaches that any of us have been a part of, very few people had initials next to their name if you look them up on LinkedIn, because that's not what counts. The people who are very public are very passionate, very passionate. They post often to LinkedIn. That was the one thing that we all think we all had in common with this group, is we all posted to LinkedIn. We didn't always agree on LinkedIn, but we all posted to LinkedIn. These are people who write books, right? I joke about it in my class, but I'm passionate enough to write books. I've written 3 books. Why is that important? I don't think they're the best books in the world. They're out there because it's like the mountain I had to climb. I think the last book is pretty good. If you want to buy it, great. If not, fine. Send me a note. I'll send you a free one. They write blogs. They host and appear on podcasts. They do things like what we're doing here because they love talking about it. They love hanging out with other Agilists. So they have a history and very public stances on what they believe. Now, I put in just for my own thing. Sometimes they even start nonprofits and teach over 4,000 people worldwide Agile. You see, I should have spell checked it for free in their spare time, and I did that for 7 years. I'm not saying I'm the best at transformation. I'm saying I think I'm pretty good, but I have a history. Steve Ropa has a history. Find people's history. If you don't find it, you probably don't want to hire this person because they don't have the passion that it takes. They don't have the public stance of having to defend their views or even change their views in public. They just don't have it. If you don't agree with what they have to say, if you don't agree with what I have to say, don't hire me. But for God's sakes, look at what I have to say. Look at some kind of track record. Don't look at certifications. I don't have any. They've all lapsed. I'm not giving any more money to certifying bodies to tell me I can do something that I've been doing for years. If you agree with what these people have to say publicly, then maybe you'll hire them. These are the people you want to bring in and talk to. You want to find out about them. So we're going to find out a little bit about Steve Ropa here in a second. That's my big idea for the day, is don't play the certification game when you're hiring people. I'm not saying for the people out there, don't go get certs. I'm not saying don't display them. I'm saying if you're hiring people, don't rely on the certs. Rely on somebody's public history. It's going to be a much, much better representation of their capabilities than certifications will be. I'm going to bring to the stage my friend Steve Ropa. I always call them friends. I don't know if we're that great of friends. Great friends help other friends move. So I don't know. Next time I move, I'll give you a call. We'll find out. But we did work together. I do enjoy his company and very happy that I had the opportunity to work with him. For those of you who don't know Steve, I'm going to read the bio because I think it's pretty impressive and I think it's worthwhile. Steve has over 30 years of experience as an Agile developer and coach. For the past 10 years, he's focused primarily on providing technical and Agile craftsmanship consulting to large teams delivering high quality, high value software. Steve's provided leadership and guidance for coaching teams that are either moving to Agile or merely want to reach a higher level of craftsmanship in their Agile shop. He's been an active participant in the Agile community since 2000, and he's presented at Agile and software development conferences around the world. The interesting thing with Steve is when we hired people to be technical, what we call technical coaches, for lack of a better word. Steve was one of them. and it was awesome to watch what he did and be a part, almost on a daily basis. And we're getting some wonderful things in the group here, um, uh, from Ariel, who was also part of our team. Epic coach, excellent trombonist. I think that's probably the best description. So Steve, what did I miss?
Nothing. As a matter of fact, I'm a little embarrassed. Oh, hi, George. I noticed one of the comments. George said hi.
Yeah.
The short version of my bio is I'm an old programmer. And I made a lot of mistakes along the way, enjoyed the ride, and learned a lot from those mistakes, and learned a lot from big people who had big ideas. And Larry, I'm kind of like tempted to just jump on your big idea rather than mine, because I could support that 100%. It's not about those certifications, and I'm not saying that I certainly wouldn't turn somebody down because they had those certifications, but that's not what I look for. Like you said, I look for what they talk about, what they're passionate about. My big idea, is it time to start being big idea?
If you're ready to start, the other thing we usually talk about is if you have anything that's going on or things that you want to know about people, places you're talking, any other things that you have going on that people should know about.
I am currently available starting in the new year. Other than that, I'm kind of keeping it quiet. Have decided to jump back into the conference circuit. So if anybody is thinking of any of the conferences that are coming up, they want to make sure I know to submit to. I'd love to hear about them, because it's been a few years since I've played the game.
Excellent. Before we get to it, I'm going to put this out there for folks. Here is my testimonial. If you want an excellent Agile coach, an excellent technical Agile coach, and you want an excellent speaker for your next conference, please contact Steve Ropa. How do they get a hold of you, Steve, if they want to do that?
So I don't know what we have here. LinkedIn, of course, which you already see here. I am Steve at peakcodecraft.net. I don't know where I could put that to make it visible to everybody, but maybe somebody could help me out there. I love leaning on other people for help.
Yeah, I think I'm sure one of our wonderful helpers will put it into the comments maybe of the show. Today you're going to talk about some of the technical software craftsman stuff. What's the title? I'm sorry, I don't have it in front of me.
It's the short version, or a paraphrase, is the main reason, or the big reason, to focus on technical excellence that nobody talks about.
Okay, excellent.
And I am going to try to present, just because I like having some slides. I don't know if this is actually presenting. All right.
I got you. I'm going to jump out of the way, Steve, and let you have it. I'll be back when we get towards the end. Those folks who might have any questions, please put those in the comments. Mr. Ropa.
Thank you. So this actually is a distillation of a talk I gave at Agile and Beyond last spring. And it came up because as I was looking at everything that was going on in all of these discussions, people say it's important to be technically excellent because you will save money, or because of productivity, or because of all these other things. And everybody nodded their head and agreed, and then went back and did what they were always doing, which is get stuff out the door as soon as humanly possible. And if that makes me miserable, well, that's life. And I thought about it, and I thought, well, why does this resonate at a conference, but not after that? And it occurred to me, we're forgetting why we did this. Why did we become programmers in the first place? And it reminded me of a scene from Ted Lasso. And I know Ted Lasso gets a lot of play these days because of motivational stuff and all that. But this was a different one. Real briefly, a lot of you know me. I'm noticing by the hellos. Hello, everybody. I like to reference quotes, movies, TV shows, all that. And there was this really great scene in one of the seasons of Ted Lasso, and one of the great players on the team was having a slump. And Coach Roy said, I'm gonna take you, and he took him to an old pickup game, soccer game, where they were beating each other up. Rules were out the window. And at the end of it, he just really had his mojo back. And what the coach said was, you remember why you did this? You didn't do this because you could get an Aston Martin. You didn't do this because of the money. You didn't do it because of the fame. You did it because it was fun. He used words that you can't really use other than on TV anymore. So I was going to use a video of it, but I couldn't because of that. And that's what I want to focus on, is not just that craftsmanship is important. We know that, but it's fun. We got into programming because we enjoy it. We enjoy solving problems. We enjoy doing the things that programming is about. It's creating, it's building, it's making something new. And then we ran into all these requirements and all these things that become less rewarding. And I'm going to jump through a couple of slides. You might see a few things here. But we got so caught up in that rat race, we forgot why we were doing this in the first place. Okay, what does this have to do with technical excellence? Technical excellence means we get to make something good. It means we get to make something great, which is more fun. It means that when we need to do the change, it's easier. And it's just a lot more fun to do. I would much rather drive this Jaguar right here than, I'll just say, generic pedestrian econo box. That way I don't have to insult anybody's choice of car. Creating something great is rewarding. Creating something great is fun. Creating something great will also give us the opportunity, I'm going to pause here, but it will also give us the opportunity to be more productive because we're enjoying what we do and because we're actually focusing on solving the problem. I'm sliding a semi-big idea in here, which is we also need to stop letting the machines do it for us. Don't let Stack Overflow, which is, how many times you see this? Somebody says, oh, I've got a problem to solve. I will go over to Stack Overflow and I will find an answer and I will copy that answer and I will paste it into mine. And then I will adjust the code to fit what my problem really is. The amount of time they spend adjusting is pretty much the same amount of time they would have spent doing it right the first time. And then they would have had the pride. They would have had the joy of doing it. One of my things I want on my tombstone is somebody once said to me, Steve, I want to thank you for making programming fun again. And to this day, I bring this up. And this was way back. This was way back when I was working at Lucent Technologies that they said that to me. So that's one of those things I always remind myself when we look at how hard programming is. It can also be fun. And that's why we did this. We didn't do this so that we could, yes, we make a good living. Most of us did not get involved in programming because we thought, oh, this will be a career. Especially some of us who are older, we got in programming because it was something that really interested us. Again, going back to this thing, I'm going to throw this at you real quick, which is a comment that was made that using somebody else's code is kind of like eating something that you found laying on the sidewalk. Not really a thing I would dig. So from that perspective, going back to the importance of technical excellence, you're not going to get it from borrowing somebody else's code. I have colleagues who will tell me that I'm totally being a Luddite because I don't believe that they will be getting, I don't believe that we will be getting the quality of code and the quality of life that we want from letting AI do the coding for us. Really don't think so. And to add to that, I want to mention some work that I've just started to explore and understand that Nicole Forsgren, Dr. Forsgren, has been doing around developer experience, which is all about making life better for the programmers, but not just because it's the right thing to do, although that's a good reason, but also because programmers who are happy make better software and they make it faster. So we get what we want as a business if we focus on making sure that we've created an environment that is conducive to making great software. It reminds me of something somebody once said, which, and I don't know, I heard it somewhere, build projects around motivated teams. Give them the environment and support they need and trust them to get the job done. I don't know. It just came up. I don't know. It just tickled my brain somewhere. Maybe all our LinkedIn friends might recognize it from somewhere. I don't know. So that's my big thought. What we're missing when we talk about programming and technical excellence and craftsmanship is not how much it will save the company. It will. It's not how much safer the code will be. It will be safer. It's not how we will be able to be more predictable. We will be. Those are all great things. But the thing that we're not talking about is that we got involved because of we like to do this. If we're doing it well, we will enjoy it more. Our quality of life will go up. Our quality of software will go up. I'm throwing slides as we go that don't necessarily show exactly what I'm saying, but I like it. So I'm going to jump to this one, which is we're not allowed to do it well. We have deadlines. Bull. We make those deadlines more often than not, and this is a little controversial. More often than not, we make those deadlines or we allow those deadlines to be made for us. Most of the people that we get involved with, most of the companies we're involved with, when we're creating software, we're saying, they say to us, give me an estimate, right? And hashtag no estimates, but they say, give me an estimate. When will this be done? Well, we have two choices. We can be honest. If you want it right, you'll get it here. But don't say if you want it right, or if you want a more craftsman-like piece of software, or if you want this to be done well. Don't say those things, because they're going to say, well, what if I want it just to be a little less well? Maybe I could have it faster. Focus instead on, this is what it's going to take. Go ahead, give them an estimate. Say it'll take 3 weeks. Wait, we can't take 3 weeks because that's not a sprint. A sprint's 2 weeks. Fine. What smaller piece do you want then? Don't say, well, it's going to take 3 weeks because I got to do all this testing, I got to do all this, and I got to. That's just going to mess up their brains. They're going to go, oh, well, let's take that testing out, or let's take that refactoring thing. I heard that takes time. Take that out. No, as has been said in the past, developers have the right to not ship crap. It's the funniest thing. I have this. It's not going to show very well, but I have this mouse pad that I got at, I believe this was at the first XP conference that they were handing these out. And it's a bill of rights, customer's bill of rights and developer's bill of rights. You know who's not in that list? Managers. I like managers. I'm a heretic. I like managers, but that's not what we're focusing on. It's our customer and it's the developer. And they have the right to not ship crap, and they have the right to not receive crap. The only way that's going to happen is if you're just honest. It's going to take time. I'm going to do it well because that's who I am. Not, I'm going to give you a list of the reasons why I'm doing it well. It's just who I am. So to summarize, as I have 2 minutes left, if I'm reading the clock correctly, the big idea around technical excellence. We need technical excellence for a lot of good reasons. But the one thing that we really haven't also focused on, and I believe is going to be a major important piece of the upcoming views on our world, is the quality of life. We're going to have fun developing software. It is okay to have fun at work. The old Dilbert cartoon, job satisfaction is like stealing from the company, is not true, and it's not believed. One of the things I see often is people say, yeah, corporations won't let us do it. Well, yes, they will. They will. As long as we're honest, as long as we're still producing high value. I'm going to briefly glance over here at the comments just because I see some good stuff here. I've worked in at least one corporation that measured devs on the number of stories completed and the number of story points completed. Their personal score goes up and they are less likely to get fired. I'll cite T-Mobile as an example. This is an unfortunate truth. Yeah, I've seen a few companies that do this. I've seen companies that have gotten their accounting confused with development. we can't change that all at once, but we can change that. Larry, you're showing up. I'm thinking that means I hit my timeline.
Yeah, no, you're doing good on time. I think you were just wrapping up. So
Yeah.
you already started going down on some of the comments. So I figure we'll open it up and let folks know that we're going to spend about the next 15 minutes with some questions and comments. You responded to one. There's one that was earlier. I'm going to put up on the screen for you. I'd like to get your feedback on it. You touched on it a little bit, Steve, but I'm curious to hear what you have to say.
Okay, very close working relationship with an advanced MI, which is in excess of 95% accurate. It's a huge difference, and in 2024, predict all software will be done with MI. In reality, the code will be written by MIs and we'll be the typists. Sure. And I'll come in later to help you rewrite the code that became such a mess. The honest answer to that for me is software development is and will probably always be a human activity. Look at the people who do not developer experience, user experience. Look at the kind of software that people enjoy using versus software that just gets the job done. There is a place for software that gets the job done, but the market is for software people are going to enjoy using. Software that's made by machines is not going to understand, no matter how smart our AI is, it's not going to understand and empathize with humans. I'm going to add into that a twist that just occurred to me. So I have completely not thought about this until right now. Accessibility. Accessibility goes beyond just things like screen readers and things like that. It actually goes into cognitive accessibility. Can I figure out how to do this if I have a cognitive disability? Will this be something I can work on? Humans will think about that. Humans have empathy. Machines don't.
Okay. I think it's a good answer. I know Ian might disagree somewhat, but he's a big AI proponent, or he, as he called it, HIMI. Actually, I probably should use his term. And he's been on the show before. But we do have another question from Ariel.
Well, I mean, some our software developers can they understand and empathize with humans? We try, and luckily we have enough colleagues who are even better with humans to kind of slap us upside the head when we get a little lost.
Steve, you've been around a long time, and I don't mean that in a negative way. You've seen a lot of changes going on. Mm-hmm. And you referenced, I think, like the original XP conference or something like that on your mouse pad. So obviously, when we talk about this topic, do you see a trend over those 30 plus years?
Unfortunately, I feel like the trend right now is moving away from the craftsman-like model. Yes, I am so old. It's moving. We have sort of a bifurcation happening. We have the industrial base. I'm going to hire 300 resources because those resources will produce 10,000 lines of code per year per resource, or as Ian pointed out, 13 stories per resource per sprint. And then we have, on the other hand, we have places that are saying, oh, no, we want to make software people are going to buy. Or we want to make software that will make our customer service agents successful. All of those things are happening at the same time. I'm desperately trying not to look at the really fun comments on the side here.
Well, we've got some characters who know you.
Yes, well. Yes. The trend, I think, right now we're looking at we're going to have an industrial side, which is going to be replaced by AI, and we have the people who are creating great software who are going to be successful, and eventually somebody's going to turn from the less empathetic stuff that was developed by AI and come over to the people who have been doing great software and saying, what do they know that we don't know?
Mm-hmm. I think it was McKinsey came out with something about developer productivity. Did you get a chance to see that, Steve?
Oh, yes. We don't have time to go into all of the things that went wrong with that. There's a massive amount of conversation on LinkedIn around it. Basically, McKinsey was coming up with metrics to determine developer productivity. I'm not saying that 100% of the ideas around trying to understand productivity are wrong, but it, again, was starting to dehumanize the process. And it's a human activity. It's not, we did this once before with source lines of code.
Yeah.
Developers who produce the most lines of code are the most productive. To which point I did this, and this was in my young arrogant days. I had a boss who said that, so I said fine, and I did Hello World in C++. That's how old I am. I did Hello World in C++. I highlighted it, I copied and pasted it, and actually what I did was I copied it, and then I just held Control V and watched thousands of lines of code be produced, looked him in the eye and said, "I'm your best programmer, give me a raise." Yeah. He laughed and did not fire me, so I think I did okay.
Well, it's interesting that you tell that story. I remember one time when talking about testing and quality of code, where somebody made a rule, and it usually comes from people well-meaning, but maybe don't really understand, as I like to call it, the VUCA world, or the things that go around in that kind of world. And they said you cannot release a code that has fewer lines of code tested. Your percentage can't go down. And we ended up, it was in Java, if I remember correctly, and I asked somebody, I said, what's the easiest way we can do it? They said, you can, even though it doesn't make any sense, test getters and setters. So I had one person who was like an intern or something like that, junior coder, and I said, okay, you write all these for the getters and setters until we can release to production. It's just crazy. I see this too. I think it's a fundamental misunderstanding by the people who are making decisions about software development. How accurate would you say that is?
I think you're absolutely right. It's part of the desire to have metrics, because somebody said you have to have metrics. If you measure it, you can improve it. Well, maybe that's not the way to figure out what needs to be improved, though. Just like you mentioned with certifications, the fact somebody has 19 has an alphabet soup after the name does not make them a great leader, coach, agilist, whatever. Same with the fact that we have 100% code coverage does not mean we have great code. It just means that we spent a lot of time putting in a bunch of tests that may or may not be the right tests.
Well, I think I'm following the comments too, and I don't know if we want to speak directly to them, but it sounds like we should have a panel discussion about AI, which sounds like a great idea. So I appreciate you bringing that up. And I'll throw Steve in there because I know where he is, and then maybe we'll throw Ian in there because I know where Ian is. And it's a very interesting thing. Other than the comments that you've already said about AI, because I've played around with it, and our friends have played around with it. I'm assuming you played around with it. Nobody knows what it's going to do to the world of software development, I think. I think we can all have certain ideas. Given that, if I had to put a gun to your head and said, Steve, how is this going to change the world of software development? What is your prognostication or prediction for the future?
Two thoughts, and I'm going to stay on I'm not going to say icky AI anymore for this part. It's one is the industrialized part that I was talking about before that has been, give me X amount of code for Y amount of money. That's going to be the first part that's consumed by AI development because it's going to save a ton of money. The next thought is at some point, I've seen people use the analogy of Mozilla. There's something there. We don't know what it really is yet. We think we do. And the visionaries, the Ians, the Toms, people like that are going to help us find what's the balance. Where is the magic? I don't think it's where the visionaries think it is. And I don't think we're never going to use it. We use it now. It's somewhere in the middle, and we're going to find that balance, and it's going to be, at some point, we're going to have a crisis of losing the ability to have the creative process. So we'll bring that back in, and we'll still have a balance. It's going to move us forward. I'm not a Luddite. It is going to move us forward. I just don't think it's going to move us forward in the direction we currently see it moving us.
Yeah, I think the one thing that's been coming to mind to me is not only just the human part, but what I would consider originality of thought. I mean, most of these are LLMs, I think, large language models. So they've been trained by, a bunch of information that's freely available over the internet. We know how accurate that is at times. So, I mean, I've used ChatGPT. I think everybody's used it at this point in time, and sometimes it's good, and sometimes it's not. And I think, you're still going to have somebody who understands software development. Even if you're using it as an aid, great. Use it as an aid. You use all kinds of things as an aid. You use it. I mean, I used to type in. I'm so old. We'll play a I'm so old game. I used to do websites in Notepad.
Yep.
There was no GUI for it. Right. You just typed it in Notepad and threw it up on the server and tested it. And then you have a GUI. So is the GUI bad because now I'm not that close to it? I'm sure that there's people with punch cards who said, "Hey, I'm closer to the code than you." Whatever. Compilers. I don't need a compiler. I'll write my own. What do you see as if the kind of craftsmanship or appreciation of craftsmanship you've said has kind of gone down over the years? How would one go about helping to bring it back?
Well, one is to embrace it and give time for it. Saying we want good code is not enough. I have a personal issue, which is my own problem with constantly talk about it as coding, because coding sounds like I'm just the typist, as was mentioned earlier. To the contrary, if we focus on hiring people who care, if we focus our hiring of developers on being able to see how much they care, I would rather have somebody who just came out of a boot camp or just taught themselves. I'm self-taught, just taught themselves, but really cared about making software. That's the person I want to hire. If we're in a position to do that, if we're in a position to nurture, to bring them to things like Agile MBA, these types of areas where they can learn more along the way, and that they care about it. Somebody mentioned Tom. I think a lot of folks here know Tom. So he had put in a LinkedIn post about working with somebody who said it's just a freaking job.
Right.
It's not. If you hire people who think it's just a freaking job, you're going to get better software from the AI.
Yep.
If you hire people who care about making something that people want and enjoy and get value out of, you're going to be the cream of the crop, and you're going to have better product, and I believe better profit.
And I think it kind of goes back, though you said you wanted to kind of more talk about mine, and you agreed with me on this
Yes.
Apke's third law thing, which is certificates really don't matter, don't judge on it. I think you're saying something very similar, is when we're making a decision on who to hire, let's look for as much of the passion. Let's look for the people. There are developers who post on LinkedIn all the time. I see them all the time, right? Let's look for those people. Let's look for the developers who, if they're not writing books, they're writing blogs. There's a bunch of developers out there writing blogs. They're helping people. They're contributing to open source projects. They're the type of people who code in their spare time. Steve, great to have you. We got a minute left. I'm going to let you have the last word before we break for this weekend. And I hope to see folks back. Before we get to that, I want to say, hey, we're here every Friday at noon. 2 big ideas. Next week, Sasha Frumpkin. Please join us for that. If you enjoy it, tell your friends, bring your friends along with it, and have them join us. Steve, last thoughts before we break.
2 that are tightly coupled. 1, the conversation about AI seems to be the really big push and the thing we need to continue to have conversations around so we can help form what it means. 2, look at DevX, look at the ability, because until the machines replace the programmers, we need programmers who are enjoying their job and who are caring about it. And we need to do that by helping them see how wonderful this craft that we created years ago and are still creating today is. And let's not let the machines have all the fun. Oh, and for anybody who celebrates it, happy Hanukkah.
Yes, happy Hanukkah, everyone. And thank you, Steve. I appreciate it. You have a wonderful day, wonderful weekend. All the folks who were here with us today, thank you for your comments. Thank you for joining us. We hope to see you again soon. Have a wonderful day. Have a wonderful weekend. Hope to see you next week. Bye-bye.
Take care. Thanks.